What if I told you that the vast majority of your anxiety, your frustration, and your wasted energy stems from a single, fundamental error in thinking? It's not a character flaw. It's not a lack of effort. It's a miscalculation of power, a failure to distinguish between the battlefield you can command and the ocean you can only navigate. We live our lives like frustrated gods, trying to command the tides, the winds, and the wills of others. And then we are crushed by our failure to do so. The first pillar of an iron mind is to abandon this futile war. It is the simple yet profound practice the Stoics called the dichotomy of control. You must learn to relentlessly separate what is up to you from what is not up to you. I learned this lesson the hard way. In my 30s, during the dot-com boom, I was the co-founder of a promising software company. We were everything the culture celebrated: aggressive, innovative, and growing at an insane pace. I tied my entire identity, my sense of self-worth, to our stock valuation. When the market was up, I was a king. When it dipped, my mood plummeted with it. Then came the crash of 2000. In a matter of weeks, our valuation evaporated. A key investor pulled out. Clients panicked. I felt the world ending. I was furious, at the market, at the investor, at my team. I spent weeks raging against the storm, trying to control the uncontrollable. I burned myself out, screaming at the hurricane. My health failed, a key partner walked away, and I was left in the rubble of a company I had tried to will into success through sheer force. It was in that quiet ruin that I discovered the philosopher Epictetus, a former slave who understood true freedom better than any CEO. He wrote, "Some things are within our power, while others are not. Within our power are opinion, motivation, desire, aversion, and, in a word, whatever is of our own doing. Not within our power are body, property, reputation, office, and, in a word, whatever is not of our own doing." My younger self had it all backward. I had chained my inner peace to my reputation, to my property, the stock price, to things that were never truly mine to command. The market will do what it will do. Investors will make their own choices. The only things I truly controlled were my responses, the logic of my strategy, the integrity of my actions, the composure I maintained in the chaos. This isn't a call for apathy. It is the ultimate call for strategic action. Stop wasting a single joule of energy on things outside your command. Consider the executive preparing for a board presentation. He cannot control if the board members are distracted, if they had a bad morning, or if they have a bias against his proposal. But he can control his research, the clarity of his slides, the hours he puts into practice, and the calm, rational way he answers their questions. His focus must be entirely on the quality of his effort, not the outcome. The archer cannot control the gust of wind that might divert her arrow, but she can control her stance, her breath, her aim, and her release. True mastery lies in perfecting your own actions. So here is your blueprint. Every morning, before you look at your phone, take out a journal. Draw a line down the middle of a page. On the left, write "within my control." On the right, "outside my control." List everything that is weighing on your mind. A difficult conversation, a project deadline, the economy, a health concern. Now, honestly sort them into the two columns. You will be shocked at how much of your worry lives in the right-hand column. Now cross out that entire column. Aggressively ignore it for the day. Take the left column, the things you can control, and pick the top 3. These are your orders for the day. This is your battlefield. When stress hits you during the day, a sudden market shift, a critical email, a personal conflict, pause. Ask yourself that one simple, powerful question. Is this within my control? If the answer is no, you have one job. Let it go. Do not give it purchase in your mind. If the answer is yes, ask the follow-up. What is my next right action? This is not about passivity. It's about precision. It is the art of applying your power where it has an effect and conserving it where it does not. Are you trying to change the minds of others? Or are you focused on presenting your case with logic and virtue? Are you agonizing over past mistakes, or are you implementing the lessons they taught you? This is the first and most critical pillar. Without it, the other 8 are useless. You cannot build a citadel on a swamp. If the first pillar is about separating what you can and cannot control, this second pillar is about your relationship with the entire column of things you cannot. The undisciplined mind fights reality. It argues with what has already happened. It says, "This shouldn't be happening. This isn't fair. I deserve better." This argument is a war you will lose 100% of the time, and it is the primary source of self-inflicted suffering. The second pillar of an iron mind is to cease this argument. You must embrace radical acceptance. This is not about liking your circumstances. It's not about condoning injustice. It is the simple, non-negotiable acknowledgement of reality as it is right now, without the filter of your preference. It is the firm foundation from which all effective action is launched. I worked with a mentee, who was a brilliant engineer. He was unexpectedly laid off from a company he had dedicated 15 years of his life to. For 6 months, he was paralyzed. He wasn't just looking for a new job, he was in a state of perpetual war with his past. Every conversation was about the betrayal, the injustice of the decision, how things should have been. His energy was entirely consumed by fighting a battle that was already over. He was trying to unscramble the egg. His suffering wasn't caused by his unemployment, it was caused by his non-acceptance of it. He was a prisoner of his own resistance. My work with him wasn't about job-hunting strategies. It was about one thing, guiding him to the point of acceptance. I had him verbalize it. I was laid off. That is a fact. It has happened. He fought it at first. It felt like defeat. But acceptance is not defeat. It is the cessation of a pointless struggle. The moment he truly, deeply accepted the reality of his situation, his entire demeanor changed. The anger dissipated. The victimhood vanished. All that mental energy that was being burned in the furnace of resentment was suddenly freed. He could now look at the situation with clarity. Okay? This has happened. What is my next move? Within 2 months, he had leveraged his experience to start his own consulting firm, something he had dreamed of for years but never had the courage or impetus to do. The obstacle, once he stopped fighting it, became the way. The Stoics had a term for a more advanced version of this, amor fati, a love of one's fate. It is the practice of not just accepting, but embracing everything that happens, good or bad, as necessary. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor, wrote in his private journal, "All that is in accord with you is in accord with me, O universe. Nothing which occurs at the right time for you is too early or too late for me." Imagine the power of that mindset, to see every event, a lost client, a market downturn, a personal failure, not as a random misfortune, but as an integral and necessary part of your journey. It's the difference between being a victim of your story and the hero who leverages every plot twist. Here is the blueprint for practicing this. When you are faced with adversity, a diagnosis, a betrayal, a financial loss, your immediate emotional reaction will be to resist. In that moment, pause. Find a quiet space, take 3 deep breaths, and then say the words out loud. This is what is. Don't add judgment. Don't add a story. Just state the fact. The contract was lost. This is what is. I made a mistake. This is what is. They said no. This is what is. Feel the truth of it in your body. This practice is not about numbing yourself, it's about grounding yourself in the truth. Once the emotional storm of resistance passes, you can then ask the only question that matters. Given that this is the reality, what will I do now? You are shifting from being a reactor to a strategist. What undeniable truth in your life are you currently arguing with? What energy would be freed if you simply stopped fighting and started acting from a place of acceptance? This practice is not easy. It is a discipline. But it is the key to transforming suffering into strength and to turning the poison of fate into medicine. The human mind is a time machine, but it has two fatal flaws. It is constantly dragging you back to a past you cannot change, creating regret, or flinging you into a future you cannot predict, creating anxiety. The tragedy is that this time travel steals from you the only moment where you have any real power, any real existence, the present. The third pillar of the iron mind is to train yourself to anchor firmly in the now. This is where life is lived. This is where decisions are made. This is where your strength is forged. All else is memory or speculation, and both are ghosts. Think of the legendary samurai swordsman, Miyamoto Musashi. He fought and won over 60 duels. In a duel to the death, there is no room for a wandering mind. If, as his opponent lunged, Musashi was thinking about a mistake he made in a previous fight, he would be dead. If he was anxiously anticipating his opponent's 5 potential next moves, his own reaction would be slow, and he would be dead. His survival depended entirely on his ability to be radically present, to see the glint of the blade, the shift in his opponent's weight, the subtle change in his eyes, and react in that exact instant. His mind was a still, clear pond, reflecting only what was happening now. We are no longer in duels with swords, but we are in a constant duel for our attention. Your phone, your email, the 24-hour news cycle, they are all designed to pull you out of the present, to make you anxious about the future or outraged about the past. This constant distraction is not just inefficient, it is a form of mental slavery. When you are in a meeting thinking about your next meeting, you are effective in neither. When you are with your family but scrolling through work emails, you are present with no one. As the philosopher Seneca wrote, "We are dying every day, because every moment we spend lost in thought, not truly living, is a small death. The man who is everywhere is nowhere." I saw this constantly in the tech world. The most frantic, stressed-out people were those who prided themselves on multitasking. Their minds were a chaotic storm of browser tabs. They were perpetually busy but rarely effective. In contrast, the calmest and most productive leaders I knew practiced a kind of deliberate presence. When they were in a conversation with you, they were with you. They listened. They weren't just waiting for their turn to speak. They practiced single tasking. They would block off 45 minutes, shut down all notifications, and dedicate their entire being to one important task. The quality of their work was orders of magnitude higher. They were training their minds like Musashi, focusing all their power on the singular point of the present. Here is your blueprint for reclaiming the now. First, start your day with 5 minutes of stillness. Don't call it meditation if that word bothers you. Just sit. Close your eyes. Your mind will wander. That is what it does. The practice is not to have an empty mind, but to gently, without judgment, bring your focus back to one thing, the physical sensation of your breath entering and leaving your body. Each time you bring it back, you are doing one more repetition for your mental muscle of focus. Second, throughout the day, use your senses to anchor yourself. When you feel the pull of anxiety, pause and engage in what I call a sensory sweep. Name 5 things you can see, 4 things you can physically feel, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, 1 thing you can taste. This pulls you out of the abstract anxieties of your mind and grounds you in the concrete reality of the present moment. Third, practice dedicated single-tasking. Choose one important task for the day. Set a timer for 25 minutes. During that time, you do only that one thing. If your mind wanders, you bring it back. This is not just about productivity. It is about reclaiming your sovereignty over your own attention. Ask yourself this. In a typical day, what percentage of your mental energy is spent on the past or the future? What one activity could you give your complete, undivided attention to today, even if just for 20 minutes? The present moment is the only place you can build, the only place you can act, the only place you can find peace. Stop giving it away. Once you understand what you can control, accept what you cannot, and anchor yourself in the present, you need a guidance system. Without one, you are simply a powerful ship adrift. You have the engine, but no rudder, no compass, no destination. The fourth pillar of the iron mind is the installation of this guidance system, the unwavering commitment to live by reason and virtue. This means that your actions are not dictated by fleeting emotions, social pressure, or base impulses. They are governed by a clear, logical, and principled framework. This is what separates the deliberate architect of his life from the accidental tourist. The Stoics were ruthlessly practical on this point. For them, the whole purpose of philosophy was to live a good life, and a good life was one lived in accordance with our nature. And what is our nature? It is to be rational and social beings. Therefore, a good life is one where we use our reason to live well with others. They boiled this down to 4 cardinal virtues: wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. These 4 virtues were the filter through which every decision, every action, should pass. Not what do I feel like doing, but what is the wise, just, courageous, and temperate thing to do? I remember a critical juncture in my second company. We had an opportunity to acquire a smaller, struggling competitor. The purely impulsive, aggressive move would have been a hostile takeover. It would have been faster and, in the short term, more profitable. My emotions, ego, greed, a desire to win, were all pushing me in that direction. The culture of the industry celebrated that kind of ruthlessness. But I had begun my study of this philosophy, and I forced myself to pause and run the decision through the 4 virtues. What was the wise thing to do? To understand the long-term consequences of creating a toxic culture and burning bridges. What was the just thing to do? To recognize the human cost to their employees and to offer fair terms that respected the work they had done. What was the courageous thing to do? To face my own board and argue for a slower, more collaborative merger, even if it meant a smaller immediate payoff, because it was the right thing to do. And what was the temperate thing to do? To moderate my own desire for a quick, brutal victory and choose a more balanced, sustainable path. We chose the merger. It was harder, it took longer, but it built a stronger, more loyal, and ultimately more successful company. My reason, guided by virtue, overrode my impulses. That is the essence of this pillar. This is not about abstract moralizing. This is a practical, operational framework. Think about a difficult decision you're facing right now. A career change, a conflict with a family member, a significant financial choice. The emotional mind will create a storm of fear, desire, and confusion. Your blueprint is to step back from that storm and become the calm, rational strategist. Take out a piece of paper, write down the problem. Then create 4 headings: wisdom, justice, courage, temperance. Under wisdom, write down the logical pros and cons. What are the second and third order consequences of each choice? What would the wisest version of yourself advise? Under justice, ask, how does this decision affect others? Who are the stakeholders? What is the fair and honorable path? Under courage, ask, what is the hard choice that I know is right? What fear is holding me back from making it? Under temperance, ask, is this decision being driven by ego, greed, or some other impulse? What does a balanced and moderate approach look like? By forcing yourself to analyze a decision through this framework, you elevate yourself above the fog of emotion. You are no longer just feeling your way through life, you are thinking your way through it. This doesn't mean you ignore your emotions. You acknowledge them, but you do not let them take the helm. Reason, guided by virtue, is the captain. Ask yourself, when you make important decisions, what is your primary driver? Is it emotion, habit, or a clear set of principles? What would change if before every significant action you asked, is this wise? Is this just? Is this courageous? Is this temperate? Your life's direction is the sum of your decisions. Make them deliberately, All the philosophical understanding in the world is useless without the will to apply it. You can have the best blueprint for a citadel, but if you lack the discipline to lay a single stone each day, you will be left with nothing but a drawing. The fifth, and perhaps most foundational pillar, is iron self-discipline. This is the engine of the iron mind. Discipline is not about punishment or self-deprivation. It is the highest form of self-respect. It is the daily, conscious choice to subordinate your momentary impulses to your long-term values. It is the bridge between your goals and your accomplishment. Without it, you are a slave to your appetites, your moods, and your weakest inclinations. The Spartans of ancient Greece are an extreme but potent example. From a young age, they were subjected to the agog, a rigorous state-sponsored education and training regimen. They endured hardship, scarcity, and intense physical challenges. The point was not merely to create strong soldiers, but to forge minds that were masters of their own internal state. A Spartan warrior's greatest strength wasn't his spear, it was his ability to feel fear and act anyway, to feel pain and stand his ground, to feel hunger and not complain. He had, through relentless practice, severed the link between feeling and action. He could have a feeling without becoming that feeling. This is the core of practical self-discipline. In my own life, after my first company collapsed, I was undisciplined. I ate poorly, I slept erratically, I let my moods dictate my actions. My mind was soft because my daily habits were soft. Rebuilding myself started not with grand philosophical insights, but with small, concrete acts of discipline. I committed to one thing, waking up at 5 a.m. every single day, no matter how I felt. That first alarm would go off, and my mind would produce a torrent of excuses. You're tired. One more hour won't hurt. You deserve to rest. And the act of discipline was simply to hear that voice of weakness and say no, to put my feet on the floor regardless. That small daily victory was the beginning of everything. It was proof that I was in command, not my fleeting feelings. This is where so many people fail. They try to build discipline by taking on massive, unsustainable challenges. They go from 0 to 100 and burn out in a week. The Stoic approach is far more strategic. You build discipline like you build muscle, through consistent, progressive resistance. You start with small, manageable weights. You prove to yourself you can win the small battles first. Here is your blueprint for forging this iron. Choose one, and only one, small, non-negotiable act of discipline to implement for the next 30 days. This is your daily sparring partner. It could be a 5-minute cold shower at the end of your normal shower. It could be doing 10 push-ups before your morning coffee. It could be the eat the frog principle, identifying your most dreaded task of the day and doing it first without hesitation. The task itself is less important than the consistency. Each time you do it when you don't feel like it, you are casting a vote for the person you want to become. You are strengthening the master of the house, your rational will, over the whining servant, your impulses. Another powerful practice is voluntary hardship. Once a week, choose to do something that is intentionally uncomfortable. Skip a meal and feel the pangs of hunger. Deliberately take the stairs instead of the elevator. Sleep on the floor for a night. As Seneca advised, set aside a certain number of days during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself the while, "Is this the condition that I feared?" By deliberately exposing yourself to minor discomfort, you vaccinate yourself against the fear of major hardship. You learn that you can endure far more than your comfortable life would have you believe. What is the one impulse that consistently derails your long-term goals? What is one small, daily act of discipline you can commit to this week to begin mastering it? Discipline is not a trait you are born with. It is a skill you forge in the fires of daily commitment. Every act of discipline is another layer of steel on the walls of your inner citadel. There is a deep fear that haunts the undisciplined mind, a fear that fuels our desperate clinging to possessions, to status, to people, and even to life itself. It is the fear of loss. We suffer not because things end, but because we believe they should be permanent. The sixth pillar of the iron mind is the direct confrontation and acceptance of a fundamental truth of the universe. All things are temporary. Your wealth, your health, your relationships, your successes, your failures, and your very life are on loan from existence. The practice of remembering this, memento mori, remember you must die, is not morbid. It is the key to unlocking profound gratitude, urgency, and freedom from fear. Both the Stoics and the Zen Buddhists built their philosophies around this core insight. Monks would meditate in graveyards to confront the reality of death. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself in his journal, Alexander the Great and his mule driver both died, and the same thing happened to both. He did this to strip away the meaningless attachments to fame and status. By keeping the end in mind, he brought a clarifying perspective to the present. If this day were your last, would you waste it on petty squabbles? Would you spend it consumed by anxiety over trivial matters? Or would you focus on what truly mattered? Your character, your actions, your contribution? I once had a mentee, a man who had built a massive real estate empire. He was a master of acquisition, but he lived in a state of constant, gnawing anxiety. He wasn't afraid of failing, he was terrified of losing what he had built. He checked his portfolio constantly. A minor dip in property values would ruin his day. He was a prisoner of his own success. His attachment to the permanence of his empire was the source of his misery. Our work together involved a powerful thought experiment. I had him visualize in vivid detail losing it all. A market crash, bad deals, everything gone. We walked through the scenario. He would lose his houses, his cars, his status, and then I asked him, and then what? What would be left? After the initial panic, he realized the truth. His family would be left. His knowledge would be left. His character, his resilience, his work ethic, the very things that allowed him to build the empire in the first place, would all remain. He realized he was attached to the fruit of his labor, not the root of his strength. This shift was transformative. He didn't stop caring about his business, but he stopped clinging to it with desperation. He managed it with focus and excellence, but his inner peace was no longer tied to its daily fluctuations. By accepting its impermanence, he was freed from the fear of its loss. Here is your blueprint for integrating this pillar. At the end of each day, practice a daily impermanence review. Instead of just listing what you accomplished, reflect on the transient nature of the day. Notice the fleeting moments of joy, the minor frustrations that have already passed, the conversations that are now just memories. This practice cultivates an appreciation for the present moment and a gentle detachment from outcomes. Remind yourself with that powerful phrase, "This too shall pass." It applies equally to moments of triumph and moments of despair, keeping you humble in victory and hopeful in defeat. Second, practice gratitude for the ephemeral. When you are with a loved one, consciously acknowledge that this moment is precious and temporary. When you achieve a success, savor it fully, knowing that it is a chapter, not the entire book. This is not about inviting sadness. It's about amplifying the beauty of the present. We only truly appreciate the warmth of the fire because we know it will eventually burn out. Ask yourself this: what are you clinging to as if it were permanent? How does the fear of losing that thing dictate your actions and poison your peace of mind? If you knew you only had 1 year left to live, what would you stop doing immediately? What would you start? The acceptance of death is the ultimate key to a vibrant, meaningful, and courageous life. A mind can be disciplined, present, and accepting, but without a direction, its strength is aimless. A fortress with no kingdom to protect is just a pile of stones. The seventh pillar of the iron mind is to connect your actions to a higher purpose, a mission that is greater than your own comfort, your own profit, or your own ego. This purpose acts as your North Star. In moments of chaos, pain, or temptation, it is the fixed point on the horizon that keeps you oriented. It provides the why that allows you to endure anyhow. It transforms your daily struggles from mere burdens into meaningful contributions. Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist who survived the Nazi concentration camps, made this the central theme of his work. In his book, Man's Search for Meaning, he observed that the prisoners who had the greatest chance of survival were not necessarily the strongest physically, but those who maintained a sense of purpose. It might have been the purpose of seeing a loved one again, of finishing a piece of scientific work, or of bearing witness to the injustice so they could one day tell the world. This purpose gave them a reason to get up in the morning, to endure the beatings, to survive one more day. Their suffering was not meaningless because it was in service of something larger than themselves. In the corporate world, I saw two types of leaders. The first type was driven by ego and acquisition. Their goals were about market share, stock price, and personal wealth. They were often successful, but their inner lives were hollow, and their teams were motivated by fear or greed. The second type was driven by purpose. They had a clear and compelling mission: to solve a genuine problem for their customers, to create a product that improved people's lives, to build a company that was a great place to work. Their why was external, not internal. This purpose was a galvanizing force. It attracted better talent, inspired greater loyalty, and, most importantly, it gave them and their teams the resilience to weather the inevitable storms of business. When a crisis hit, the ego-driven leader asked, "What does this mean for me?" The purpose-driven leader asked, "What does our mission require of us now?" The second question is infinitely more powerful. Finding your purpose is not some mystical quest. It is a process of deliberate self-examination. It is found at the intersection of three things: what you are good at, what you care about, and what the world needs. My own purpose shifted dramatically after my burnout. For years, it was about building successful companies. Now, my purpose is to help others build unbreakable minds. It is the mission of this channel, the work I do with my mentees, the reason I am speaking to you now. This purpose gives my work a meaning that no stock price ever could. Here is the blueprint for defining and living your purpose. First, you must write it down. Take time this week for a mission statement exercise. Answer these questions in writing. What are my core values? What skills do I possess that I enjoy using? If I could solve one problem in the world, my community, or my family, what would it be? Synthesize the answers into a single, clear sentence. For example, my purpose is to use my leadership skills to build a business that creates sustainable products, or my purpose is to be a present and patient father who raises resilient children. It doesn't have to be grandiose, but it must be meaningful to you. Second, integrate this purpose into your weekly routine. Every Sunday, hold a purpose review. Look at your calendar and your to-do list for the coming week. For each major item, ask, does this action serve my purpose? If it does, attack it with vigor. If it doesn't, ask why you are doing it. Can it be eliminated, delegated, or reframed? This practice ensures you are not just busy, but busy with what matters. It aligns your daily actions with your ultimate destination. What are you building, really? What is the cause you serve? If you were to write the story of your life, what would be its central theme? A life without purpose is a ship drifting at sea. A life guided by purpose is an arrow shot straight to its target. In the modern world, confidence is often confused with arrogance. We are told to project unshakable self-belief, to fake it till you make it. But this external armor is brittle. True, lasting strength, the strength of an iron mind, is not built on arrogance, but on a deep and powerful humility. The eighth pillar is the development of warrior humility. This is not the humility of a doormat. It is the humility of the master who knows there is always more to learn. the strong man who understands his own fallibility, the leader who has the confidence to listen more than he speaks. It is the understanding that ego is the enemy of growth, of connection, and of true strength. The samurai of feudal Japan, governed by the code of Bushido, offer a fascinating model of this paradox. They were among the most formidable warriors in history, yet their code placed immense value on virtues like compassion, respect, and humility. A true samurai was expected to be as skilled in the tea ceremony or poetry as he was with a sword. He understood that true mastery required a beginner's mind, an openness to learning from every situation and every person, regardless of their station. Arrogance, the belief that one knows everything, was seen as a fatal weakness, for it closes the mind to new information and new threats. An arrogant warrior is a predictable warrior, and a predictable warrior is a dead one. Early in my career, I was the opposite of humble. I believed my success was due entirely to my own brilliance. I was quick to speak, slow to listen, and dismissive of any idea that wasn't my own. I saw admitting a mistake as a sign of weakness. This arrogance made me incredibly fragile. When one of my strategies failed, my ego couldn't handle it. I would blame my team, the market, anyone but myself. This prevented me from learning the most valuable lessons, which often come directly from our failures. It also created a culture of fear, where my team was afraid to bring me bad news or challenge my assumptions. My ego was a wall that blocked both learning and loyalty. It was a painful but necessary process to dismantle that wall. It started with practicing the simple, terrifying act of saying 3 words. I was wrong. The first time I said it in a team meeting, the room went silent. But it wasn't the weakness I feared, it was the beginning of trust. The next step was learning to practice active listening, to enter a conversation not with the goal of winning an argument, but with the goal of genuinely understanding the other person's perspective. I forced myself to follow a simple rule. I had to be able to articulate the other person's position to their satisfaction before I was allowed to state my own. This was transformative. I began to see solutions I never would have seen on my own. This is your blueprint for cultivating warrior humility. First, make it a daily goal to learn something new. Deliberately seek out perspectives that challenge your own. Read a book by someone you disagree with. Follow thinkers from different fields. Ask questions and genuinely listen to the answers. This practice starves the ego, which thrives on the illusion that it already has all the answers. Second, embrace the practice of admitting fault. Once a day, find a small opportunity to admit a mistake or a knowledge gap. It could be as simple as saying to a colleague, I'm not sure I have the best handle on this. Can you walk me through your thinking? Or telling your partner, I was wrong to get defensive earlier. Each time you do this, you dissolve a piece of your ego and replace it with strength and authenticity. Finally, practice active listening in every significant conversation. Do not just wait for your turn to talk. Listen with the intent to understand. Paraphrase what you've heard to confirm your understanding. Ask clarifying questions. This not only makes you more effective and respected, but it is a powerful exercise in subordinating your own ego to the pursuit of truth. What do you believe so strongly that you are unwilling to question it? In your conversations, are you there to learn, or are you there to win? True confidence is not loud, it is quiet. It is the quiet confidence of knowing you can learn from anyone, adapt to anything, and grow from everything. That is the humility of a warrior. We have come to the final pillar, the one that integrates all the others. It is the active, alchemical process of transforming the lead of adversity into the gold of strength. The undisciplined mind is broken by challenges. It sees them as punishments, as interruptions to a life that is supposed to be easy. The iron mind welcomes challenges. It sees every obstacle, every setback, every failure not as a roadblock, but as a sparring partner. It is the resistance that is necessary for growth. This is the ultimate mindset of the warrior and the philosopher. The obstacle is the way. The ancient warriors you see in statues were not born with chiseled physiques. Their muscles were forged through the strain of lifting heavy things, through the stress of countless drills, through the impact of combat. The hardship was the very process that created the strength. The same is true for your mind, your character. Every time you face a difficult situation with virtue and reason, you are performing a mental repetition that makes your character stronger. Every failure you analyze and learn from is a lesson that makes you wiser. Every fear you face with courage makes you braver. I look back at the greatest periods of growth in my life, and they were, without exception, born from the greatest challenges. The collapse of my first business taught me resilience and the dichotomy of control in a way no book ever could. The burnout that cost me my health forced me to rebuild my entire operating system based on discipline and purpose. A profound personal betrayal taught me the true meaning of acceptance and the importance of my own virtue when others abandoned theirs. At the time, these events felt like curses. In retrospect, they were the fire that forged me. I would not trade the lessons learned for any amount of comfort. This is the mindset you must cultivate. When life presents you with a challenge, a job loss, a difficult project, a conflict, a betrayal, your first reaction might be, "Why is this happening to me?" The iron mind reframes the question, "What is this trying to teach me?" Or "How can I use this to become stronger?" This is not blind optimism. This is strategic pragmatism. You are taking the raw material of your life, especially the difficult parts, and deliberately choosing to build something of value with it. Here is your final blueprint. Start an obstacle journal. Whenever you face a significant challenge or failure, document it. But you must follow a specific 3-step formula borrowed from the Stoics. 1. Objective description. Describe what happened without emotion or judgment. Not "My boss humiliated me in the meeting," but "During the meeting, my boss criticized my report's conclusions in front of the team." Be a neutral reporter of the facts. This separates reality from your emotional story about reality. 2. Lesson, opportunity. Ask yourself, what virtue is this situation demanding of me? Courage, patience, justice, wisdom? What is the specific lesson here about my strategy, my communication, my preparation? What is the opportunity for growth that this obstacle presents? 3. Actionable step. What is one single, concrete action I can take, within my control, to apply this lesson or seize this opportunity? For example, obstacle. I launched a new product and the sales were terrible. Description. The product I managed launched last month. Initial sales figures are 90% below projection. Lesson, opportunity. The lesson is that my market research was flawed. I relied on my own assumptions instead of data. This is an opportunity to learn humility, to become a more data-driven leader, and to learn how to pivot from a failed strategy. Action. I will schedule meetings with 3 of our biggest customers this week to get their direct feedback on why they didn't buy. Do you see the power in this? This process transforms you from a victim of circumstances into an active student of life. It turns every setback into a personalized training session. What is the biggest obstacle in your life right now? Instead of seeing it as a wall, can you see it as a weight in the gym of life, perfectly designed to build a muscle you currently lack? Your hardships are not a bug, they are a feature. They are the curriculum of your growth. Embrace them. Learn from them. Use them to forge the unbreakable, unconquerable core of an iron mind. 3. Actionable step. What is one single, concrete action I can take, within my control, to apply this lesson or seize this opportunity? For example, obstacle. I launched a new product and the sales were terrible. Description. The product I managed launched last month. Initial sales figures are 90% below projection. Lesson dar opportunity. The lesson is that my market research was flawed. I relied on my own assumptions instead of data. This is an opportunity to learn humility, to become a more data-driven leader, and to learn how to pivot from a failed strategy. Action. I will schedule meetings with 3 of our biggest customers this week to get their direct feedback on why they didn't buy. Do you see the power in this? This process transforms you from a victim of circumstances into an active student of life. It turns every setback into a personalized training session. What is the biggest obstacle in your life right now? Instead of seeing it as a wall, can you see it as a weight in the gym of life, perfectly designed to build a muscle you currently lack? Your hardships are not a bug, they are a feature. They are the curriculum of your growth. Embrace them. Learn from them. Use them to forge the unbreakable, unconquerable core of an iron mind.